I'm at Grace Church Road. I went to Waynesboro to bring this man down to this address, and now he's trying to force his way into a house. I'm afraid to move my vehicle. Just fighting in there.
It's inside the house now?
Yeah.
You have your doors locked?
It's open. I'm in a van.
You need to make yourself safe, okay? Even if you've got to drive away from there to get away from him and close that and lock that door. Do that for me now, please.
Okay, wait a minute.
Hello, everyone. How are you tonight? Hey, Lewis. Thank you for joining.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
Do you have a busy day at work today, or?
I had a really easy morning, and then I had a busy mid-afternoon, and then I came home, and it's chilly, and it's been raining here all day. It's like that kind of weather you just like want to like stay inside.
Yeah, same here today. It's been nasty. It warmed up some, so it's been in the 30s today, but it's same thing, raining all day. Gloomy day, cold, you want to be inside.
Well, I've lost my Midwestern thick skin, so when I say it's gotten chilly here, I mean it's like 53.
Yeah, it's a little different, but the rain doesn't help. It makes it really muggy, not muggy, but damp and uncomfortable.
Yeah. So how is everyone tonight? Sunny is under the weather, so it's just going to be Lewis and I hanging out for a little bit. Lisa, I was on time. Sunny had the live scheduled for tomorrow instead of tonight, so I apologize for everyone that just got the notification, but I ran it and changed it really quick. She must be feverish and delirious.
Yes, Adam was actually early tonight. And technical difficulties.
It's okay. Sunny just wanted to throw me a curveball at the last minute there to see if I was going to be on time. She thought I'd be late. She was like, well, I'll give him an entire day, so he'll show up at some point between now and then.
Was that the excuse?
It must be. So yeah, I just want to say a few hellos to everyone really quickly. We have Callie in the chat. Hey, Callie. We have a new member, B. Murphy. Thank you for becoming a member. Jill Mosher. We have Mrs. Mac 3099. Hiya from the Midwest. Hey, Miss Mac, where in the Midwest are you from? Nicole's product review. Hey, Jill Mosher. There's Callie again. Sees through. Lisa. How are you, Lisa? Hey, Dave. Hey, Belinda. I think that's what we have so far. Callie, Charlotte traffic was rough tonight. Why were you in Charlotte, Callie, and you didn't come say hi to me? You could have brought me a pumpkin spice latte or something. So, Yeah, just want to say hello to everyone. We're going to be talking about the Idaho case a little bit tonight. It probably won't be a super long live. I have an early morning tomorrow, and I'm not sure what you've got going on, Lewis, but
I'm always busy, but I'm never busy.
the man of mystery.
I think I lead 3 different lives.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, technically we all do, right?
Possibly 4. I don't know yet.
Okay. Hey, Mrs. M says shout out from Minnesota. I guess Miss M knows what cold is.
Yeah.
There's a YouTuber I follow that's in Minnesota, and boy, it's always cold there. But it's a beautiful state. Hey, cold case reports.
Hey, Jill, how are you tonight?
So, is there anything? So I don't know if we wanted to talk. Is there anything you wanted to talk about with Delphi before we to talk about Idaho at all?
Just that they did confirm that statement that came out was the request for more money for the defense, which makes sense since the prosecution put a request out for $40,000, previously. So,
Okay.
And the request is for expert testimony and stuff like that. So most likely it's going to be for gun science and ballistics and things.
Right. And I would say it's probably a safe assumption to think that that'll be awarded to them, and it should be because it's in everyone's best interest that that this individual receives a fair trial. Hopefully the conclusion of it will be the right conclusion. But I think it's the best thing for everyone if everyone's got a fair and even playing field.
Yeah, whether he's guilty or not, you need to make sure that the defense has no reason to open this up or have a reason to have the trial redone or anything to be done in the end. So,
right.
Really,
I think
yeah.
And when we've discussed the science even behind, say this unspent bullet, I think because of the kind of science it is, we have the prosecution's going to have no problem having an expert witness that, most likely is going to present credible and scientific information as far as why they believe the redaction marks, or what's the word? The marks on the casing, matched scientifically.
Yeah.
But then, the defense is going to be able to pull their own expert witness and to say the exact opposite.
Exactly. So, yeah. It's going to be a battling of the expert witnesses.
Yeah. But,
I did see something today, and I didn't have time to look any further into it. Maybe you saw it. Somebody put up a picture of an interview with Tobe Lesenby.
I did see it.
With the 40 caliber shell sitting on his desk.
Yeah. Someone had sent me that a couple of days ago. I honestly, and I'd kind of forgotten about it because I believe it was from an interview with it was either James Renner or I think that I can't remember now, but I remember the interview. I remember watching it, and I remember seeing that bullet and just thinking that would be something normal. I think would be on a sheriff's desk. And then when someone sent it to me the other day, and then I believe I saw Hoosier Cold Case did something about it, and then today Captain Howdy did an excellent video, and he discussed it as well. But it's funny because I came away from that thinking, has Tobe Lesenby been smarter than us the whole time?
Well, if that was in the Renner interviews, I pointed out a while ago that I blew those off when I first heard them, and I started looking at them 6-7 months ago, really in depth and analyzing them. And he dropped so many different hints, at least they seem like hints in the interview, that it makes it seem like he wanted to give more information, couldn't, so he did it in his own roundabout way. And that bullet, if that's the case, and it was that same interview, really ties into that. But it does make you wonder how far ahead of the game was he and was not able to put information out there without doing it in a roundabout way.
He was trying to make up for those dogs. And don't quote me on it might not have been Renner, but that's the one that came to mind for some reason. It could have been one that he did with what's his name from either Wish TV or WTA.
Yeah, possibly. I just saw a screenshot of it showing the bullet, and it was in his office, and I don't remember him having a shot from the left side like that in Renner's interview, but they were done in his office the same way, so it's possible.
Right.
But
yeah, and then I was catching a little bit of a stream earlier today. I know we're here to talk about Idaho, but just discuss just a few things with Delphi really quickly. But I was watching Cold Truth, her stream when I got home tonight. I put it on, and she discussed it a little bit as well, and she was even mentioning about the HLN interview, which it may have been the HL interview, Kaylee, because that was a pretty telling. It's been a long time since I watched it, but they also did the interview with Tobe out in the woods, and he talked about. Oh my gosh, I'm having a blonde moment now. He said some interesting things in that interview as well, when they were standing out in the woods.
yeah, I've actually come to respect his interviews over time, where I was judgmental on them in the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, anyone in his position, I think when you take a position like that, you invite the criticism that comes your way.
Yeah.
But I don't ever think that his intentions have been anything but pure. I mean, yeah, he may have made a mistake or two along the way, but I think his intention has always been for justice for the girls.
I think he was put in a different position. I think that something like this happens, and it's probably one of the worst things they've had in their career. And then all of a sudden, you've got so many different departments coming in and probably pulling, state police is probably saying we're in this position. Then you got the FBI, and that could be overwhelming on somebody that's in charge to feel like maybe they have to step aside for these other people to come through, but then you're still in charge of the case. So whatever they do wrong comes back on your department. That's a tough position to be put in, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, one, I'm sure, I know that he's a parent, and, I think anyone that's a parent, one that's this kind of a case is going to hit particularly close to home. And not even a parent, just anyone that, has children in their life that are close to them. But also, I'm pretty sure that, when Tobe Lesenby ran for sheriff of Carroll County, he never intended two guys on YouTube were going to be sitting here 6 years later discussing him.
Yeah.
So
analyzing every word that he said over the years with a microscope.
Absolutely. And that's also like the one little bit of grace that I will extend Shane Evans as well, is that I know that he's gotten a lot of criticism, which when you run for mayor, you open yourself up for. But being the youngest mayor, one of the youngest mayors in America at that time, I doubt, no one could have ever been prepared for what the town of Delphi and the county of Carroll County, or the state of Indiana, was opened up to because of what happened on that bridge that day.
It's a tough position to be put in when you're all over the papers for being the youngest, and then being the youngest could be a negative in people's eyes because of experience. So then you start getting scrutinized heavier than somebody that was in there that might have been in there for 20 years. So
right.
It's a tough thing to have to handle.
Yeah, I agree. And sadly, when the people in that area of Indiana woke up on the morning of February 13th of 2017, they never realized that 24 hours later, the name Delphi, Indiana, is going to forever now be unequivocally intertwined with what happened that day.
3,000 people is a very small town.
Yep. And now there's 3,000 people on YouTube alone talking about it. But yeah, but then there's 10,000 talking about Idaho.
You're gonna have to bring me up to speed on that tonight, because I heard what happened in the beginning, but I just haven't paid much attention. So.
Right. I think one of the newest things that I was watching today, and there may be some updates that I haven't seen, but I knew that there'd been body cam footage that was released today from the field that was outside of the fraternity house where two of the victims attended a party that night. And with the layout of where the house was to where the fraternity house was, you can actually see the house in the background vaguely in some of the body cam footage.
Yeah.
But police responded to a alcohol well, they saw three drunk kids stumbling, on the street, and they tried to stop them at 3 a.m. That same night, which they law enforcement has said the murders took place between 3 and 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So that body cam footage could potentially hold some information. I'm going to have to watch it 10,000 more times. But it was funny because actually even in one of the officers in the body cam footage even says to the three kids as they're writing the citation or whatever to he's like, I'm kind of surprised, it's a slow weekend. We kind of thought it was going to be a busy weekend there was a football game that weekend, and then the kids were all leaving for Thanksgiving. And he said, yeah, it's been a really slow weekend. And as soon as I heard him say that, I was thinking, much like we were just talking about with Delphi, those cops had no idea that 24 hours later, everyone in the whole world was going to know the name Moscow, Idaho.
A statement like that winds up being scrutinized later too,
Yeah. And everyone that it's Moscow, not Moscow. So, but no, as far as so the gist of that case, Lewis.
Yeah.
That the four victims were all killed in that house on the night of the early morning hours of November 13th, and then their bodies were discovered a little after noon on that same day on the 13th.
And I know the basics.
Yeah.
What I heard that didn't make sense to me, which I've not looked into, I'm sure you know by now, is the correlation between the survivors. That were they unaware of what happened until they woke up?
The surviving roommate, the
ones that were in the house that were not attacked, were they even aware of what happened until they got up the next day?
No, I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
The only statements that they've issued publicly have been the words that were read by a youth pastor at one of the vigils, I think last Sunday, and they were heartfelt. I thought very kind words. I know those girls are getting scrutinized and are getting everything in their lives and their boyfriends' lives analyzed by online detectives right now as well. So by all accounts, I think that they went out, they were at a different event that evening. As far as we know, they got home before the other roommates, and I think were asleep on the first level, maybe with or without their doors locked. There's been, people have speculated differently. And then there's a lot of speculation about the 911 call, because we know that it came from one of the roommates' cell phones. But it was, they, apparently had called friends, or friends that came over to the house before 911. So the friends are the ones that called 911. And there's different reports about why that happened. So I don't think that they were aware until they woke up around 11:30, 11:45 the next day.
It's funny because people are making a big deal about this, but that's because nobody's been caught. Are you familiar with the stabbing in Indianapolis back in 2020? There was a lady who she used to work for the Bureau of Motor Vehicles and Department of Corrections and stuff. And she just started writing memoirs about what it would be like to kill somebody. And then she was considering killing her boyfriend, but she felt that was too close and she shouldn't do that. So she just randomly went to somebody's house, knocked on the door, went in with a knife and started killing everybody in the house. Three of the four people were stabbed. One of them survived. The other two passed. And the one that was upstairs was able to get away. She just ran off and left. And if it wasn't for her name being stitched into the inside of her hat, they wouldn't have even known who it was. Wow. It's weird how things like that can happen. But that case came to mind when I actually heard about this case, because everyone theorized as to what happened, and people do have breakdowns, and that's what this lady did. She had a good career with the state and all that, and then next thing you know, she decides that she just needs to kill people. That's just weird how things happen.
And I think arguably, I think the hardest crimes to solve are probably completely random crimes like that. I was watching a video the other day about about Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
And I've looked into him a lot. It's been a while, but that was one of the things that, you know, honestly, if you think about it, he got caught kind of by dumb luck.
Yeah. That was like stumbled upon. That was not like you would expect it to be.
But I mean, he, in his own words, has said, you know, that he would fixate on people and stalk someone and, you know, fully plan on, you know, ending their life and then change his mind at the last minute.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'm like, that's so bizarre to me to think of. And that, you know, and he talks about it pretty openly in some of the tapes that I've heard of him. And, you know, I mean, you know, what he did was horrific, but, I mean, he could have gone on a lot longer without being caught had it not just been for some patrol cop.
Exactly. Yeah. Just stumbling upon it and making the right decision, you know?
Yeah. Right. So I don't know if you've been looking at chat here. I've not been paying attention.
No, it's on my other phone. I've not been looking. My phone too.
That is fine. And someone had asked about the video that's come out about one of the neighbors stating that they heard a scream right around the time they were going to bed, about 4 a.m. on that morning, that lived in the apartments that were next to the house. I've heard of that. I have not personally watched the video, so I haven't heard it. I have not heard the audio of it. I'm just speculating here, but it seems odd if someone, by their own account, said they didn't pay any attention to it at the time. Yeah. Why were they recording? So I don't know how much weight I put into the audio of that being legit or not. But I will look at it. I will look it up as soon as we're off the stream tonight before I go to bed. Oh yeah, it was crime sleuthing.
They did record that.
Have you all seen the video with the audio put out today that a neighbor allegedly recorded in the wee hours of the 13th, in which you can hear a girl screaming? That's fake or no? Yeah, my gut tells me. Of course, well, I guess I can't say without seeing or hearing it, but I would find it odd.
I do have to say, because I follow a lot of these. Do you follow the scanner pages on Facebook?
I don't follow any of them on Facebook. I have a scanner app, and I have a couple of websites that I have pinned, mainly because of Delphi. Especially when we were waiting to see if there was going to be an arrest at different points, I was kind of obsessing over them. I actually have a police scanner that I have not plugged in years. I don't even know how it works anymore, but I do still have it.
You know, I've got two, but the apps seem to work better because they can monitor multiple channels quicker, and they'll actually broadcast more. But the reason I brought up the channels on Facebook, the pages, is because you might not think people record things like that. And if they do, you think they'd be more fixated on what's going on. But I see so many people in the comment sections on these scanner channels pages, and the stuff that they notate, and they'll go driving around the block and looking at this or just recording stuff. You know, they'll be at the window videotaping the cops come by and all that. And then the next day, it's like they don't even remember what happened. Some people do get fixated on that. Especially, I've seen more, I think, from COVID. More people have sort of been inside and not out doing as much, and they've fallen into living by these scanner rooms and scanner apps, and vicariously living through what's going on out in their neighborhood.
Why can't they be like normal people and just live in a YouTube chat room like we all do? Right, everyone?
Well, I do both, so I guess I'm responsible for both.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably fair with the whole C word and what is kind of done to a lot of people.
Yeah. I
have a Christmas party to go to next weekend, and I haven't been to an event like that in so long that I'm like, wait, like what? I'm like, who's going to be there? What do I need to wear? I'm like, I don't think I know how to be social anymore.
You have to bring anything?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. Well, I mean, I would show up with something regardless. At least, especially a gift for the host.
Do you like split peas?
Yeah. I think most of my friends know me well enough to know that me bringing food to an event is not a sign of I come in peace. Because I'm not known for cooking.
Well, it's easy. If you know how to make split pea soup, which is just dumping the bag into a slow cooker with water, that's all you have to do and let it cook. But then you put it in the refrigerator and make it like a dip, and you used it with nacho chips. No one I've seen does that, but I've been doing it for years. And if you take some tofu like bacon and toss that in there, it gives it that smoky flavor. But
Right.
It's a quick meal to bring that's still a vegetarian meal.
Is it gluten-free?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You literally go to like Aldi and you buy a $1.50 bag of green split peas. They come in a bag almost like beans. You rinse them,
Right.
soak them for an hour, dump them in the slow cooker, cover it with water, put it in there, and let it sit for 2 hours. It's all you have to do. Simple.
Huh.
And then refrigerate it.
Well, I will not do that. I will assure you I will not do that for the party I'm going to next week, but I will keep it in mind for, just other things. Because that sounds like pretty easy. I think I could handle that.
It's an easy dip to make, and if you refrigerate it, it's cold. No one even knows it used to be soup.
No one knew it in The Exorcist. Crime Sleuthing says the report of a scream heard by neighbors near 4 a.m. is true. However, the recordings some people are putting out hasn't been confirmed by Ellie. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, so I would agree with that 100%. I do. Yeah, I know the report of it is accurate according to that neighbor. It's just this audio or video that's apparently come out today that I'm skeptical over. In honor of Sunny, there are 69 people in the chat, so if everyone could just give a thumbs up, we appreciate it. Deep Diver says 4 murders and 2 claims sleeping. Why did they lock their doors? If they were bothered, why didn't they lock the front door? The front door, we don't know whether it was locked or not. We know that it had a keypad, which I know I had a keypad on my condo door, and I do have to actually hit a button to lock it. But I know some doors, when they have a keypad, do lock every time, and then you have to put in the code. So we don't know that the front door wasn't locked. And as far as the bedroom doors, if anyone's familiar with the layout of this house, and knowing that this was a college house, that they did host events at this house quite a bit. There are 5 people all living in the same house. It does not seem odd to me that if my bedroom, because when you walk in the front door, to the right you have one of the bedrooms where someone survived, and to the left you have the staircase, and then behind that is the other surviving roommate's bedroom. So I mean, if you're in a college house, it's a Saturday night, it's 1 a.m., your roommates aren't home yet, and you want to go to bed, you don't know that they're not going to have people over after the bar closes. So it doesn't seem odd at all to me that you would lock your door. You don't want someone stumbling in the wrong room, or someone joking or drunkenly jumping in your room to think they were being silly and wake you up as you're trying to sleep. So I don't think it's odd that the doors would be locked.
I think it would be odd if they were not locked.
Yeah.
Now, was this just a privately rented house, or was this actually part of a fraternity?
Yeah, no, it was a privately owned house that's run by a rental company, realty company in that town that I'm sure they specialize in renting to college students, because I would assume most of the properties are in that area. I mean, would you want to live a stone's throw away from fraternity row at a college campus?
Right, and it's a good, it's a rental property for them to make income. So,
right, yeah, and especially the way that laid out with 6 bedrooms.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it rented for, but I'm sure that was a very profitable thing for the owner,
and
a great location for students.
And then, who were the last 2 to get home? Do you know?
Police have said that Xana and Ethan, who were at the Sigma Chi party that night, and and there's still some there's still some missing time that's not been accounted from in the timeline of their evening. They say they got home around 1:45, and then they had said that the two female roommates that were on the third floor, Maddie and Kaylee, had gotten home at 1:45 as well, but the police did change the timeline a little bit, and they put them coming home at 1:56 because by the accounts of one of the sisters, she said they know from camera footage that they got home at 1:56. So clearly someone had a Ring doorbell or something. So, I mean, it's in the area.
You said you've got one of those keypad door locks in your house too?
I do, yeah, my condo.
I will give you something to watch out for. If you have to hit the button inside to lock it, if somebody puts pressure on the door while you're doing that, it will sound like it locks, but it will not lock.
Well, no, the keypad's only on the outside of the door. On the inside,
yeah,
I have the deadbolt.
Okay. The ones that I have in my other house are both sides are keypads. So when you come in, you just hit the middle button and it locks automatically. And I found that I had to adjust seals because in the wintertime when things would get colder, it wouldn't close enough. It would start to close. It sounded like it was closing. So then I realized over time that if you pushed on it when it wasn't cold out, it would do the same thing. And I always thought that was a dangerous thing. So I changed the lock a little bit and it now closes no matter what you do. But the way they normally fit, if you put pressure on them and it's a power to lock, you'll hear the motor go, but it actually can't lock.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for one, you'd have to get through like 3 different steps of security to even get to my floor. But then, I'm in a corner unit, and it's at the opposite end of the hallway from the elevator. So, there'd be a very long hallway that I would have to notice someone behind me in order for someone to get to my door before I could get that deadbolt locked. It's like one of those long hallways like The Shining.
Yeah. I went to New York 4 years ago. I went back to New York and I was bringing a construction trailer, a new trailer to a friend of mine who owns a business out there on Long Island. And I didn't want to drive back. It's a long drive from here. And I stopped in New Rochelle and it was like 10 o'clock at night. And you can get rooms on your phone. If you're using Google, you just put it in there and it goes through, Expedia and stuff. And they'll give you matching places that are in the area that are good deals for the night. And it was a 3.5 or 4-star, real nice place. And it popped up and the price was really low. I think it was like $75 or $80 for the night. And it was close. I'm sure, okay, well, it's late at night, so it's probably because they know it's only half a day stay, but they extended the stay till 2. And I did it and I went there. And it was this big, huge, beautiful complex, but it was partially under construction and being renovated. So most of it was empty. There was construction workers there and all kinds of construction vehicles parked. And, when I walked in, it was weird because you checked in at what looked like a restaurant with a big bar, but there's not a single person there except for the bartender. So it's giving you those Shining vibes. And then I got a picture on my other phone, that you had to walk through this corridor and then go around a thing into the part of the hotel that was open. And this carpeting down this extremely long hallway was like mesmerizing with the designs in it. It was like late 70s, early 80s weird design carpet. And the place is completely empty. I mean, there was the bartender who checked me in, and I don't think there's anybody else there except construction workers. And you're walking down this hallway and it was like it felt like you were in an airport, like you're walking down an airport from terminal to terminal, because this place was huge and everything's empty. It was like, am I going to make it out of here tonight? It was so weird.
Now I'm picturing you walking around this hotel like Jack Torrance in The Shining. Just you and the bartender.
Like I'd just been driving for 2.5 days straight, and I was exhausted. I wanted to sleep, and as I'm walking down, it's like I don't think I'm going to sleep at all. This place is really creepy.
Lisa says Lewis gets the hourly rate. Lisa would know all about it. off subject really quick, but if anyone wants a good app that that does kind of the same thing Lewis was talking about, there's an app called Hotel Tonight, which wherever you're at or wherever you're going to be, if you're driving through or going somewhere, and they update their website every day at like noon, and it basically has hotels that like put in if they have like an excess number of rooms still available, and a lot of times they're half off. And so I've even stayed at really nice hotels for $80-$90. So kind of like you were saying, Lewis.
Yeah.
But that's one I've always had good luck on.
That sounds like an interesting app to use.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. It's called Hotel Tonight. And I always cross-reference everything when I use stuff. So even if I am to rate like that, I would still probably Google it just to see. And I feel like it's always a little bit cheaper than like Booking or any of those other ones, definitely.
Gotcha.
See through, no, I've not had any of those in a while, so hopefully those are over and done with. Delphi Primetime says, I think I'll pass on that recipe. Hey, Danger Dave. Danger Dave said when I was in college, and that could be as well. It's hard as an adult, sometimes to put yourself back in a 20-year-old brain and think of what we did and the things that, were normal to us at that point in our lives. And for anyone that could be in the chat that is that age, you'll understand someday.
I'm going to see this picture just because it bothers me now. If it ever comes up here.
I don't know if anyone has watched I know the body cam footage, clips of it had come out. Today is the first day I saw the actual entire body cam footage from both officers' standpoints. Oh, that picture is creepy, Lewis.
Isn't it? Look how deep that hole. I was halfway down the hallway. Look how much further it goes down.
That's about the length of my condo building. And unfortunately, I'm on my iPad, so I can't share my screen, or I would show everyone in chat. But yeah, it's about as long as my hallway. Because my building takes up
half of the walk, and then at the end there, that opened up into like this big weird room with windows that overlooked the lake. But it was goofy, interesting.
I have a dry throat. Sorry. Danger Dave. I do have my own channel. I don't post a lot of independent content on it, but I do have my own channel. And if someone can drop it in the chat, I would appreciate it. But it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, Danger Dave. I was saying the body cam footage that today was the first day I watched the raw footage with both officers that were doing that stop for those kids. And I couldn't make anything out. I know some people have speculated that you can see a light turn on in the background in the house and then turn off. I'm going to have to watch it slowed down and like zoomed in probably. Or just kind of know when to look for it. Because the first time I watched it, I got completely distracted by the three drunk kids that were getting a citation for underage drinking, and so I had to go back and rewatch it because I was like totally invested in their story. Like 5 minutes in, I was like, I don't know if anyone has watched the body cam footage that's in the chat, but the police, there's this big field in front of the Sigma Chi house, and it's not funny because of knowing what happened that night, but I couldn't help but giggle when I was watching this because these three, I think they're all freshmen in college, are walking quickly away from the police. It's pitch black. The flashlights shine right at them. The cops are going, Moscow police, Moscow police. And then the kids kind of slowly stop and like one by one turn around. One kid, he's like 10, 20 feet further on that he's like not going to stop. And he stops and turns around. And the cops are like, why didn't you all stop? And he goes, oh, I thought you were talking to I thought it was a fake person. And I think he was trying to say they didn't, because the cops were in plain clothing and they didn't have a squad car, which I found interesting as well, because they didn't have police lights. Because when I first heard about this incident, I was thinking, well, that's brazen for whoever committed the crime to go a block away and do this when you're in full view, you would be in full view of police lights. So it was interesting to know that there was not a marked car or anything like that. But these kids were like, I'm sorry, officer. And then the cops were like, so, like, where was the party? Where were you coming from? And the one kid goes, I don't know. And I don't know why it made me laugh so much, but I'm just like, and he was like, how many beers have you guys had? And the one kid's like, a couple, 6. And the cops were like, you guys were like falling down. Are you sure it wasn't more than that? And the one kid goes, 8. So, I mean, it just put me right into that. Like, you know, I was like, oh, these dumb kids. But the other thing, it was an underage drinking ticket cost $487.50 in Idaho. I was like, that seems. I never got one when I was in college, but that seems really expensive to me. I don't know if it is or not, but did you ever get an underage drinking ticket in college? Did you ever get an underage drinking ticket in college, Lewis?
Oh, me? No. I don't drink.
Even in college?
No.
Okay.
Well, you know, going to college in New York City is a little bit different than going to college in a college town.
Yeah, it is.
It is a little bit different, but
the biggest college town in the country. But, who just says I'm real late? Are you discussing the body cam? Yeah, we were. Who just? I was really just kind of lamenting on like what the 3 kids that were getting the citations kind of were going through, but I've watched it twice now, and I've not seen. I can't make anything out yet from the house, but I haven't watched it slowed down or zoomed in. I've seen pictures, but I would like to see it for myself.
I would assume that they would review that, and if there was evidence of the crime in the body cam, then it would be excluded from being released, unless people were able to get it released early enough.
Can you repeat that for me? I'm sorry, Lewis.
No, I said that I would assume that if there was actual evidence in the body cam footage of the other crime in the background, that they might have suppressed releasing that, unless people were able to get that released before they connected it to the crime. I'd be curious if people had like early requests for that body cam footage or not. But,
I don't know about requests. I mean, I know that it was. I mean, I heard about it. It's hard for me to judge because I was in Portugal when the crime happened,
yeah.
And so I started following it when I was there. But then my concept of time was so I think it was like a week later that I became aware that there had been the police had responded to an unrelated call because people kind of already started speculating at that point that, you know, well, if there's body cam footage, maybe you can see the house in the background. Because there are pictures from the fraternity house where you can very clearly see the cars that are parked there. You can see the windows and everything like that. And then at 3 a.m, there's not going to be a lot in the way. So the only thing that was blurred out in the video that I saw was like the kids' faces, and I think and I watched it on YouTube. So I think that might have been the YouTuber's decision to blur those faces out because they're all adults. So I believe that as far as I know, the only thing that people are saying that they've seen in the body cam footage is possibly, like I said, a light in the house going on and then back off. And then I think a lot of people have been kind of scouring over it and speculating whether or not you can see this white Hyundai Elantra that police are asking for information on.
Yeah.
I know that a rumor, there was a still shot that was kind of circulating around yesterday or the day before that a lot of people thought was the white Elantra, but it's easily dispelled because when you watch the body cam footage, you can clearly see the car that the people are alluding to that being parked in a different parking lot closer. And I believe it's like a Ford or something, but I don't know if anyone saw the update that came out. The Moscow police did issue a press release this evening, which I thought we could read. If I think I sent it to you in Messenger. Didn't I, Lewis?
Yeah, you sent me the file.
So yeah, I'll start and I'll read the first page, and then if you want to read the second page, it's 5 pages long, and I've not fully read it yet.
Okay.
But it says press release for immediate release December 9th, 2022. Moscow Police Department, Moscow Homicide Update. The Moscow Police Department is providing the following information to update the public on the known facts surrounding the 4 murders that occurred on November 13th in Moscow, Idaho. Moscow, Idaho. Investigators have been monitoring online activity related to this ongoing and active case and are aware of the large amount of rumors and misinformation being shared, as well as harassing and threatening behavior towards potentially involved parties. Anyone engaging in threats or harassment, whether in person, online, or otherwise, needs to understand that they could be subjecting themselves to criminal charges. Moscow Police Department cautions the public not to rely on rumors and remains committed to keeping the public informed. We urge reliance on official channels for accurate information. Update on the white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. Investigators would like to thank the community and public for recent information provided about the vehicle and the spike in tips. The FBI is prioritizing and vetting those tips for use in the investigation. The public is asked to continue to use the tip line to report any information about the vehicle. Calling in tips. Please be aware that this new call process takes patience on behalf of the caller, and there are some prompts to follow. This is a national FBI tip line, and it is important to get all the way through the prompts to reach the right agent to report the information. Remember, your tip may be the key to solving this case. Then you can watch a clip from their official Moscow Police YouTube channel of the police chief, James Fry, regarding the white 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra. And then it says, as previously reported, detectives are interested in speaking with the occupants of a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra with an unknown license plate. Tips and leads have led investigators to look for additional information about this vehicle being in the immediate area of the King Road residence during the early morning hours of November 13th. Investigators believe the occupants of this vehicle may have critical information to share regarding this case. Okay. So before we move on really quickly, something that stood out to me with that, and I knew this already, but they did, the Moscow Police Department is a small police department, and they only had, I think, 36 people on their roster, and they did reduce the caseload in this. They hired 5, I think they brought in 5 FBI agents, hired 2 new detectives, and then they reassigned 25 people off of the case. So they moved the case into a different phase, which they're calling the analytic phase. And some people are saying that, that's pretty quick when it's only been just short of a month. But I also think that goes probably makes sense then with the fact that they've now, when you call the tip line, it doesn't go to the Moscow Police Department, it goes to the FBI. And that was something I had noticed in there. They talked about how you have to go through different prompts on the tip line now. But that's good because hopefully the FBI has, hopefully they can categorize and kind of go through those tips in a much more efficient manner than maybe a smaller police department could. Hopefully.
As long as they'll misfile it.
Clerical error. Yeah, so if you would, did you want to read page 2 if you don't mind?
Over from the next, if you like. If you know of or own a vehicle matching the description, or know of anyone who may have been driving this vehicle on the days preceding or the day of the murders, please forward that information to the tip line. Information can be submitted, and the tip line is listed as 208-883-7180. That's 208-883-7180. And then they also have an email for the tip line, and then a link for the digital media, which I'm assuming is going to probably go to the FBI website and link to the stuff that you said was on there for tips. And then follows with the below photos or stock images of 11 to 13 Hyundai Elantra and are not the actual vehicle. And there's pictures of 2 white Hyundai Elantras below that. At this time, no subject has been identified, and only vetted information that does not hinder the investigation will be released to the public. We encourage referencing official releases for accurate information and updated progress. All press releases and information related to this case are available at the following site, and that's the CI Moscow site. If they search for it on Google, I believe they can search King-Street-Homicide, and that should bring it up on Google. Investigate timeline. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogen were at the local bar called Corner Club at 202 North Main Street in downtown Moscow between 10 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th. At approximately 1:40 a.m., Kaylee and Madison were seen on video at a local food vendor called the Grub Truck at 318 South Main Street and used a private party for a ride home from downtown to arrive at their 1122 King Road residence at around 1:56 a.m. Investigators have determined that Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were seen at the
Xana Kernodle
were seen at the Sigma Chi House on University of Idaho campus at 735 Nez Pierce Drive at approximately 1:45 a.m. Ethan and Xana are believed to have returned to the residence at 1122 King Road. It was previously reported that Ethan resided at the home. However, it has been determined that he was only visiting. Detectives believe that on November 12th, the two surviving roommates had also been out in the Moscow community separately, but returned home at 1 a.m. on November 13th. The two did not wake up until later that morning. On November 13th, the surviving roommates summoned friends to the residence because they believed one of the second-floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. At 11:58 a.m., a 911 call requested aid for an unconscious person. The call was made from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones inside the residence. Multiple people talked with 911 dispatcher before Moscow police arrived at the location. Officers entered the residence and found two victims on the second floor and two victims on the third floor.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of that was kind of redundant from previous press releases.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if previously they had put in that, because they were a little bit more specific in the one aspect about the 911 call. Because they've always kind of been vague about that, so which has led to a little speculation about who, because there was a rumor that one of the surviving roommates went upstairs and came across one of the victims and ran outside and passed out, and that so police were responding to an unconscious person, but there was actually one of the surviving roommates. But I mean, in this press release, they're very clear to say that they believed one of the second floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. So I mean, that's a little bit more that's a little bit more specific as far as taking away the idea that it could have been one of the first floor surviving roommates that passed out, and then the police were responding to an unconscious person's call for that.
Now, am I correct in understanding that one of the victims was actually in the doorway to their room?
I mean, we don't know anything other than what the police have officially said, but that is a rumor. And I mean, we know that the coroner and the police have said that they were all asleep when they believe the attack started. But if one of them woke up at some point during and was attacked out, I don't know, say if Ethan, a lot of people are speculating that Ethan might have heard something and woken up and the killer might have had to have killed him because he was coming down the stairs when Ethan was coming out of the bedroom. That's all speculative. I think it's just as likely that Ethan might have survived for a little bit and could have tried to crawl away. I don't know.
I'm asking because my assumption is that would be the person that they saw unconscious, and assume that was the one the call was made about because they were not in the bed. The other ones all seem to have been in the bedrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's easy to speculate on everything, but I mean, my first thought is, of course, is naturally like, well, how do you mistake someone that's been brutally stabbed to death
Yeah.
But just being unconscious, like, wouldn't there be, DNA evidence all over that, that area? But especially with what we saw, what could potentially be, even running on the outside of the wall, outside of the house through the foundation.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll find out when the police release that information. But yeah, you're correct that is, I think it's very likely that, he might have been in the doorway of the bedroom when he was found.
I've not really followed in there, just something I heard, so I didn't know if that was confirmed or not. But
yeah, it's not been confirmed, but no, I mean it's definitely definitely something that a lot of people have speculated on. So page 3 says autopsies were conducted on November 17th. The Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the 4 murdered individuals and their cause and manner of death as homicide by stabbing. The coroner stated that 4 victims were likely asleep, some had defensive wounds, and each had been stabbed multiple times. There were no signs of SA. Detectives continue investigating what occurred from approximately 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th, when Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were believed to be at the Sigma Chi house at the University of Idaho campus at 735 Nez Perce Drive. Any interactions, contacts, direction, and method of travel, or anything abnormal could add context to what occurred. That's an interesting choice of words, add context to what occurred. Sorry. Detectives are seeking all outside surveillance video taken from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Sunday, November 13th, from businesses and residents within the geographical area listed below. Detectives request all available videos, whether there appears to be motion and content or not. Wow. West Taylor, north of Boundary, West Pelhouse Drive, south of Boundary, Highway 95, south to 2700 block of Highway 95S, East Boundary, Arboretum and Botanical Garden, West Boundary. Detectives are also seeking additional tips and surveillance video of any unusual behavior on the night of November 12th into the early mornings of November 13th, when Kaylee and Madison were in downtown Moscow, and while Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house. Anyone who observed unusual behavior near these areas or has video surveillance is asked to submit their tips. Investigators have looked extensively into information received about Kaylee having a stalker. They have pursued hundreds of pieces of information related to this topic, but have not verified or identified a stalker. Anyone with information about a potential stalker or unusual instances is asked to contact the tip line. At this time in the investigation, detectives do not believe the following are involved in the crime: 2 surviving roommates, the male in the grub truck surveillance video, private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on November 13th, the male Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early morning hours of November 13th, any individual at the residence when 911 was called, or the individual on the lease who moved out of the residence and before the school year started and was not present at the time of the incident. Additional information related to the investigation. Currently, no suspects are in custody and no weapon has been located. On the night of the incident, officers located a dog at the residence. The dog was unharmed, turned over to Animal Services, and later released to a responsible party. Local businesses were contacted to determine if a fixed-blade knife had been recently purchased. Detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters on King Road to locate possible evidence. Governor Brad Little directed up to $1 million in state emergency funds for the ongoing investigation. So then I'll pause right there. A lot of that, again, is kind of redundant. I did think it was interesting that they used the word any interactions, contact, direction, and method of travel, or anything abnormal could add context to what occurred. I just think it's an odd choice of words to use. I think that's showing that they aren't thinking it's going to show motive, but they could show that it could add to it. To me, which makes me think they have a clear idea of what the motive was.
Or maybe an altercation.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And then the 3 to 6 a.m. thing, I can't remember if it was 3 to 6 a.m. before that they were asking for the same, if that was all the exact same information or not. all of the stuff that they said, the people that say it, they said they do not believe are involved in the crime are all the same people that they've said from the get-go. I think the only one they've added was the sixth roommate who didn't live there. And the grub truck surveillance video, the male in that people that his name is Jack S. And I know there's a lot of Jacks in this case, but Jack S. or Showalter is the individual in that video, and he's also, I believe, the one that Kaylee's father is referring to when he talks about the police clearing someone too soon. And now I'm hearing more and more speculation that he really is in Africa with his family. So, and that he did not give that he wasn't asked for did not give a DNA sample before he left. And the country he's in does not have extradition with the U.S.
Wow.
If he's there.
That's scary. I do want to commend them for actually naming people that they do not think are involved.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes a way in protecting people's privacy.
It hasn't stopped anyone. but
no, but if you look at like Delphi, for example, people that could have been clear from the beginning, they've been named online by thousands of people and have had their lives picked apart through social media. All that could have been prevented by just saying, we know where they were, leave them alone. And that never was said. So I give them credit for doing that in the press release.
Absolutely. Do you want to move on to page 4? Was there anything on that page that kind of stood out to you? I mean, no. even not knowing the case of, inside and out, is there anything from a police press release standpoint that you find interesting?
No, you hit the points I came up with. Like I said, the first thing that came to my mind with that statement, the way they worded it, was if anyone noticed anything that might have been a conflict, even like a road rage incident type thing. People disregard that, but then they think back and say, wait a minute, I remember a white car beeping its horn and cutting somebody off, or, things like that could actually reflect to what happened later on.
Absolutely. So if we can move on to page 4, and for anyone that has any questions in the chat, go ahead and when we're done with this, I'll because I've seen a few in there, so I'll go through some questions after that as well.
All right. If you're ready, I'll continue.
Absolutely, I will be right back.
Throughout the investigation, detectives have collected more than 2,770 calls to the tip line, over 2,645 emails to the tip line, over 1,084 digital media submissions to the FBI link, 113 pieces of physical evidence collected and taken to the ISP crime lab, approximately 4,000 crime scene photographs taken, multiple three-dimensional scans of the residence. That's interesting. On November 29th, as part of the ongoing homicide investigation, the original search warrant detectives located 5 vehicles from within the police perimeter to a more secure long-term storage location to continue processing evidence. Idaho State Police Forensic Services crime lab scientists have worked on this case for weeks and have provided testing and analysis results to detectives. As they complete additional tests, those results will also be provided. To protect the investigators' integrity, specific results will not be released to the public. As detectives move forward with the homicide investigation, a private security company has been contracted to provide scene security to free up patrol resources. The scene remains under police control. Detectives are aware of a 6th person listed on the lease at the residence. They've spoken to this individual and confirmed they moved out prior to the start of the school year and was not present at the time of the incident. Detectives do not believe this person has any involvement in the murders. Rumor control. There's been extensive media interest regarding an incident at Taylor Avenue and Banfield on November 13th, 2022 at 3:01 a.m. This incident was an alcohol offense which was addressed by the on-scene officer. This call is not related to the murder investigation, but for further details regarding this incident, a Moscow Police Department public records request can be submitted referencing incident number 22-MO9896. We have not changed our belief that the murders were a targeted attack. However, investigators have not concluded if the target was the residence or its occupants. There have been media questions about a September 12th, 2022 incident regarding an argument between a group of people walking on the University of Idaho bike path and a cyclist. It was reported that during the confrontation, the cyclist displayed a folding knife. Both parties dispersed and there were no injuries. The cyclist turned himself into police. The case was investigated and misdemeanor charges were referred to the Moscow City Attorney's Office. There is no connection between the individual involved in the incident and the current murder investigations. There have been media questions regarding a February 2022 death on Baker Street. The Latah County Coroner's Office has confirmed the death was due to an overdose. This case is not related to the ongoing murder investigation. There have been online reports of a red Mustang on South Deacon Street being processed as part of the murder investigation. This information is not accurate and the vehicle is not connected to the incident. The identity of the 911 caller has not been released. There have been numerous media inquiries about the 1999 double stabbing in Pullman, Washington, and the 2021 double stabbing with a death in Salem, Oregon. While these cases share similarities with the King Street homicides, there does not appear to be any evidence to support the cases are related.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of that again is kind of redundant. I have pictures of that Mustang. I've seen most of everything about this. I've not seen the cyclist issue thing, but the other cases in Pullman, Washington, and the one in Salem, Oregon, are on their own right horrific crimes, and they deserve to be solved as well. And those victims need justice as well. But it's almost like, kind of like Delphi and Evansdale. I mean, if you want to find similarities in them, you can absolutely find them. So it's definitely a rabbit hole that if you have a free afternoon, you should look up those cases.
I want to commend them for actually putting rumors to rest. And that once again goes above and beyond what we've seen with Delphi.
Right. Yes, I mean, I think that and this police department has received a fair amount of criticism. Some of it rightly so, and some of it, in my opinion, is a little off base. But I will definitely commend them on at this. I mean, do I personally think they? I wish that it hasn't been 2 weeks since we had a press conference from them, but clearly they are working the investigation how they feel is best, and I'm going to have faith in that as of right now. But, I guess a press release is better than nothing, right?
Yeah. And it seems like they've done quite a bit in this short amount of time. I mean,
right.
This press release does give you a lot of insight into what they have done, and it names a lot of things that they're not going to release yet. So that tells me that they're heavily vested in this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have the world's eyes on them. I mean, I think there have been almost like 200 million TikToks made about this. And these were 4 people's lives that, were horribly taken away. But from a voyeur standpoint or, just true crime interest standpoint, this case has quickly, within, less than a month, become, I'd say, probably the absolute largest true crime mystery in more than a decade. It's already garnered way more attention than Gabby Petito did, Delphi, and anything that even comes close to it right now. And it's still unsolved. So the police department, everyone they have a lot of reason to try to dispel as many rumors as they can and be as forthright as they can be. And I think it's important to remember too, we're also dealing with oh, sorry, I didn't know my camera wasn't on. We're also dealing with college students, and I mean, we live in a digital media world and social media world, and no one knows that better than college age students. So this naturally was probably going to play out on social media in a lot of ways, and I mean, the Reddit boards, the YouTube channels. I mean, anyone that wants to find information or even rumors or speculation about this case, you don't have to try very hard to find it. I will finish out for the 5th page really quick. Detectives are aware of the Latah County incident of the report of a skinned dog, but do not believe there is any evidence to support it is related to the incident. Contact Latah County Sheriff's, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I think it's Latah, but Latah County Sheriff's Office for further details. Detectives are also aware of Moscow police incident of the report of the deceased animals left on a resident's property. This was determined to be a wildlife activity and not related to the murders. Online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. The Moscow Police Department is utilizing assistance from the Idaho State Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Latah County Sheriff's Office. Assigned resources vary based on the current needs of the investigation. These numbers are approximated and do not reflect additional off-site personnel and other assistance provided. Moscow Police Department, 6 detectives, 5 support staff. Federal Bureau of Investigations, 46 investigators in Moscow and located throughout the United States. 2 behavior analysis unit investigators. Idaho State Police, 13 investigators in Moscow, 15 uniformed troopers assisting with community patrols, communications team, ISP Forensic Services. The Moscow Police Department thanks our community for their continued support, understanding of the limited information we can share, and patience during this difficult time. Press releases are located on the City of Moscow's website and triple hashtag. I guess that's their stop.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Have they released a profile since
No.
they have BAU units there?
No, they have not. And that's been a question that's been asked of them because they've had. I don't know if it was 2 or how many were on it from the beginning, but they've had the FBI, the behavior analysts unit on scene from early on, but yet they've not released a profile. I have not watched it yet. I do know that I think everyone knows we love John Kelly on this channel, and I know that John Kelly did a podcast, or he did an episode with Grizzly True Crime yesterday, who I don't know if anyone has a link to her channel, but I always like watching her stuff, and I love John Kelly. So when I get a chance, I'm going to watch what he has to say about it, because I'm always interested to hear his analysis on things.
Yeah.
So that's as far as I know, the latest information that came out, and a lot of it, I apologize, was repetitive. But I just wanted to read that because I had not read it before we started the live tonight. And I did see a few questions in the chat. Oh, hey, Ray Jones. Miss Max said, I want to see an overlay with the body cam and a real pictures. Some say a house light, others say a headlight. Yeah, I've heard the same. I did see one video today, Miss Mac, where someone did a few-minute video of an overlay. I actually felt like it took away from what I was watching personally, just because it was harder for me to see what was the overlay and what was behind it, and see which was what, and it's a body cam, so he's kind of moving the whole time. So I was curious to see that as well, but I did not feel like I got anything beneficial from watching it. But you can find that on YouTube. I think Zap Girl did a video today where she released in the first 5 minutes of it, I think she has an overlay. Indy Pam, oh hey Indy Pam, says car is not in the body cam footage. Yeah, it's not. They're complimenting your background, Lewis.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, here's a question for you, Lewis.
Yeah.
Mrs. Mac 3099 says, I would love to know if they can get a search warrant for everyone's Wi-Fi in certain areas and get the cell phone tower data. You and I were talking about cell phone tower data earlier, and start going through everything. We live rural. We have one tower.
Yeah, that would not be something they could do. They would have to actually request each person individually and have to have a reason for the warrant for that person.
Well, what's that called when they do the
dump?
like a blanket? Yeah.
Yeah, they can do a cell tower dump, That way the information's there and it's saved, but you have to actually request each person's account individually, and you have to actually have a warrant allowing it to be released or the person's permission. And they can't just go in there and dump everyone's information. If they did that, that would open up so many other areas for them to do that in, and that would invade people's rights.
Oh, you don't think that you've never seen? I can't remember what the device is called that they use. It's like the little robot.
Yeah.
And it can literally just go down the sidewalk and it can pull all of it. I learned about that in a case recently, and I was. And they got called in this. I don't know if it was the CIA. It was the U.S. government. They had contracted these devices and bought them from like an independent company, and I was amazed that they kind of blasted it out there, and they had to cop to it. I can't remember what case that was in, but and there is a difference. Like with Wi-Fi, correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, but to get the information off of individuals' Wi-Fi's, they would actually have to go into the individual routers. Am I correct? Whereas like a cell phone tower, it can contain, or it can do a cell phone dump and give you all of the devices that were connected to that one
and then
tower.
You would need that dump from the tower too in order to connect the Wi-Fi unit to the tower if they were using Wi-Fi, or if they were using it through cable, like a cable type modem. I mean, there's different ways, but if you need the access, the information that's in there, there's usually a digital record going back to the company from the device.
Right.
So every time you communicate, it's sort of like what you would call a cookie on your computer. It sends a cookie back. So there's a reference point to whatever the IP was that logged in, or if it's a cable type thing, the device ID number. So there's records out there. The thing is getting the dump before they're deleted. And, it's not like if you have an accident in Walmart parking lot and you've got 7 days to request the camera footage, you do have more time than a week, but you do have to get a request for it. And then the request seals the information from being deleted. And then you have to actually get a warrant to access each person's account.
Right. And I mean, am I correct when I say, if you're looking into, because I know it's been speculated in this case that, because people that, if you're going to go off the assumption that the killer is in the age range of the victims, that most people that age do live on their phones, and so if it was someone potentially familiar with one of the victims and had been at that house, something, if they had their phone with them, they might not have even thought about was that they might log in automatically to the Wi-Fi, and that even when you're walking by different Wi-Fi devices, if your phone tries to connect to them, but to pull that information, unless you're going to do it from the phone, you would have to do it from each individual router. Am I correct?
Yeah, but most devices are not going to automatically look for Wi-Fi unless the person is surviving on Wi-Fi all the time. I mean, if you've got service on your device, most of the time you keep Wi-Fi off, because if it's constantly looking for Wi-Fi, it does run your battery down quicker. So the person that even is relying on Wi-Fi for usage is going to also rely on battery saving. So they'd probably only turn Wi-Fi on when they needed to connect.
Right.
And to go another step further, I look at knife crimes differently, because knife crimes are hard to perform without getting yourself injured or without having knives break or issues. To do this with so many victims, you would have to, and this is probably one of the reasons they say that it was a targeted event. If this was targeted and they thought it was planned out, give me one moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just to add, I mean, what Lewis was saying as far as, I think that, I think it's, I think everyone looks at a knife crime different than they do even, like a mass shooting, just because it's such a personal way to kill someone, and let alone kill 4 people. And even just the physical exertion, I hate to put myself in the mindset of like someone that could commit a crime like this, but it would require a lot of physicality just to go through the act of committing this crime to 4 people and get away and then get out of that house, let alone uninjured.
Sorry,
you can continue.
Oh, when I think of knife crimes, because if you went into a house to kill somebody, and there's always in the movies, they go to the kitchen and the big knife from the knife block is missing.
Right.
I tell people to take that knife in your hand in your kitchen and hold it, and now turn it the other way and pretend you were actually in a situation where you had to attack somebody or defend yourself. How easy is it for that knife to slip out of your hand and cut your hand? You know,
the hilt of a blade is very easy. For anyone, if you've got a blade, if you've got the tip of the blade is here, and then the bottom of the blade is called the hilt, and the hilt is that where the handle meets the blade, and that's a very easy place to injure yourself, like Lewis is saying.
Yeah. Also, if you were stabbing somebody, of course there's blood, and it's very thick, but it's very viscous. It's like oil, not like water. So imagine you're cutting your Thanksgiving ham, and you've got oil all over your hands from preparing something else. That knife wants to slip. It's very hard to get a tight hold on it. So if somebody's planning something out like this, because you would think this had to be planned, if it wasn't, you would wind up with injuries to yourself, blood everywhere. It would not be the way they depict this as targeted. So I would almost think that this is something that was planned in advance. They probably had the proper type of weapon, the proper way to secure it to your hand so it can't slip. And because of that, they're not going to have their phone connected to Wi-Fi or even on. Yeah, that's something that makes no sense. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But I really think from what I've seen here that this was way planned in advance. Not maybe them in general, but the actual crime was planned in somebody's head, and they spent some time devising what they were going to do, and probably had trial runs in their head enough to figure out what the issues might be.
Yeah. And the potential of other people probably being there.
Yeah.
But I agree. I know that the word K-bar has been used a lot. Used around this case a lot. The only official thing that we know is that it's a large, fixed bladed knife. Most people have said it's kind of a K-bar style or military style knife. My understanding, I don't know a lot about knives. But my understanding is that the handle or grip of a K-bar, because of what it's designed for, does provide some more traction as far as exactly what you're saying about the viscous oil, kind of nature of what blood would entail to prevent the slip. And then if you were to add, I would assume gloves with that as well. I would think that would help a little bit, but yeah, it would be very hard to pull this off and not leave some part of your DNA there. Let alone a hair. But I would assume probably even blood.
Well, I would think it had to be very quick and very violent. And anyone that's ever been in a situation like that, you're going to also sweat just from what you're doing. It takes a lot out of you to take on 4 people, even if they're separate at different times. And there's a lot of energy exerted when it comes to using a knife to stab somebody multiple times. It's not easy like people would picture it is. So you're going to have that sweat.
Especially over four victims in two separate locations.
Yeah. So that's what makes me think that the weapon was probably. If I was going to do something like this, I would look for a weapon, a fixed blade with some sort of a finger hold grip so there's no chance of slipping, or some way of strapping it to your hand so there's no way for it to slip that way. And that could be, they do make certain types of fingerless gloves that have Velcro straps. People use them for weight training, like when you're running weights, and you can actually strap the small dumbbells to the gloves. They make similar gloves like that for knives too. And I would think that the weapon here is probably very specific.
Yeah. And I would think it's important also that, with a crime like this, the knife is going to be something that's very personal to the killer. I'm sure everyone has heard that terminology before, but it's not going to be something because of the actual victim. It's going to be something the killer themselves has fixated on or has a fascination about or an interest in. And it's not exactly, if it is like a K-bar style knife, even though they are relatively common at, knife stores and gun stores and things like that, it's not something that everyone has laying around in their house. So, I mean, you have to have an interest enough, if you're not ex-military, to go out and purchase a knife like that. And, I know that, one of the people that's been cleared as of now by the police, in some of their pictures, in one of their pictures that's an avid hunter, there are, these kind of military style knives because they like knives. So, and he may or may not be in Africa right now.
So I'll show you this. Like, even if you had a folding knife, I don't know if this will show up on here well. So this knife here is a folding knife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see the blade for sure.
There's a lock on here, just like a safety on a gun. When that lock is pushed forward, you can't even use the quick release to close this blade. So this becomes almost like a fixed blade just by pushing a little lock here. And this has, I don't know if this will show up on here, but you can see where it actually has on the front and back grooves for grip.
Oh, we see the perforated marks.
Yeah, it has those, and then up on top where it's got the hilt for the hand, that's where the metal release is. That's ribbed also for traction, so you can't slip with it. So when you've got this locked, your thumb fits on the lock, and your hand grabs on both of those spots, and this knife does not move like a normal knife would. And then the actual handle's composite, and it's grain too.
Yeah, the handle's not showing up very well. It's your grain screen, but
color, but it's got texture to it. So this is a tactical locking knife that does more than a straight blade would. But there's so many different weapons you can use.
Well, I don't think it'll be lost on any of us that you are carrying a large blade on you right now, Louis.
5.
Well, wait, you have 5 knives on you right now?
Yeah, but I mean, I use them for work too. Like, I use these Milwaukee locking knives, like these here. There's 2 different ones I have, but they're high grade construction quality with a different type of blade that won't bend or break. And then they make,
remind me not to piss Louis off,
a hooked version, which people refer to that gut knife. This is actually more common. This is a flooring type knife or a carpet knife. And it works more like a gut knife like you would use for hunting, except it's stronger. And I don't know if you can see on the top of the blade there's a thumb rest. And that thumb rest is so you can actually grab it tight when you're pulling towards you when you're cutting flooring and stuff.
Yeah.
But it makes it a better knife for not slipping either. And then you've got stuff like this. This is a tactical serrated knife. And the serrated part actually makes it easier to get out because it cuts as you pull out. And this is what's that?
Would you use that, is that like out of the ones you showed? Because I don't know a ton about knives, but if you were if you were to say if you were to got a fish, would that the one you just showed the tactical one, would be the easiest one to use, or skin, or I don't know, whatever you do to fish?
No, this isn't for fishing, but this one here, this is a Smith & Wesson called a cutting horse. It's an old knife. I like this knife because the release is actually on the back. It's a cam back. You push it, and it unlocks. You have to worry about the newer knives that have that little grip that you have to hit. So when this knife is open, it locks. And then I don't know if you can see these, that little thing that sticks up, there's one on either side. That is so you can close it with your thumb. No, it's for opening it quickly.
Okay.
So you can, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but like that, it's open, just thumb pushes it, but it's weighed really well. But something like this, if you're going to hurt somebody, it's very sharp, but it's tapered, and it's beveled on the top and the bottom, and then it's got a line on it, which is called a blood line, which people worry about that. And when you talk about stabbing somebody, the biggest problem with committing a crime with a knife, especially like from somebody's kitchen, is they don't have what they call a blood line, which is a release line. When you go into the victim or animal, let's say you're using it to cut a deer, the blood causes a suction on the blade, and then the blade does not want to come out. So by making a triangular type tip, it goes in easier, and then that blood line allows air to get in there so the blood doesn't suction. But if you've got one that's serrated like this, you can take
if you hold it in front of your body or your face, we can see it.
If you see the serrated part of the blade on the bottom there, the back half is serrated.
Mm-hmm.
I use these for when I'm doing stuff at my business, but like if you're cutting a hose, rubber, stuff like that, serrated knives cut so much easier than a sharp blade, and they don't dull as easy. But that does the same thing if you were to use it on an animal or something. When you go to come out of the cut, you then use a serrated part to make it come out easier so that the blood doesn't lock the blade in. But,
okay. And I mean, clearly you might be the person to ask about knives.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. I mean, clearly there's a difference in if you're using a knife to create stab wounds versus slice wounds.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, if you're using a knife like with a serrated edge, is that going to help or hinder or is it just going to create more damage regardless?
It's going to help because that serrated part allows you to make a rough opening. A sharp, thin blade is the worst thing to try to take out of a wound because the blade is very thin and it's very sharp. And when it makes that cut, it's almost like if you cut yourself with a sharp knife, how you don't even realize you cut yourself and it closes up real easy. If you put a Band-Aid on it right away, there's no scar or anything. It's the same thing. Yeah. You're trying to take that weapon out, and now you've got the suction of the skin and the blood holding the knife in. So that's why a lot of people, when they do a murder like this, they wind up hurting themselves, or the knife that you see a lot of times they say that the knife broke. Well, the reason the knife usually breaks is because they're struggling and it's not easy to get it out. And a lot of kitchen type knives are high carbon, which means that they hold their edge better for cooking, cutting, stuff for dinner. But because they're high carbon, they'll actually crack easier. So when you do that and you hit a bone or you bend it or you're violently doing whatever, the knife will actually chip off the tip or break at the hilt. Whereas that's why these red Milwaukee knives, you can see I don't know if you can see the metal looks more grayish.
Yeah.
They hold up real well tip-wise, but I have to sharpen these a lot because they do dull out over time because they're not as brittle of a blade. It's not as hard. It's a softer blade, which you would think you don't want a softer blade for working on stuff like that around the house, but you actually do. You don't want the blade to shatter. You want the blade to actually get dull and get a nick in it because you can always fix that when you sharpen it.
Right. It's like, I mean, like hair cutting shears or, a straight razor.
Yeah. Exactly. But there's all kinds of knives. Like here's another one that's got a texture.
I was going to say, you said 5, and we only saw 4 until now. So can you show that one again? The blade.
This one is just like a junk knife. It's something I picked up. I think I picked this up at Walmart real cheap. But this is the one I do stuff with. I don't care if I damage the blade. So, a $6, $7, $8 knife like that is good for when you're working on cars and stuff, because if you break it, it breaks. Oh, well. But this has very deep texture on the handle. And the reason for that deep texture is to keep it from slipping. But where your finger goes to stop it is like a ramp. So if you try stabbing somebody with this violently, you're going to slip over and cut yourself. When you go in, it's going to slip and you're going to wind up cutting your hand. And most people see, a lot of people, if they're stabbing somebody, they put the knife in their hand like this with the blade pointing down. And the problem with that is the weakest part is holding the back of the knife. So as you go down, it slips, and then your fingers that are holding tighter will grip the blade and cut yourself. Right. That's the most common cut when somebody commits a crime with a knife, is when they're stabbing and it cuts the hand from the finger down.
And that's why I don't think it would be. I would hope that law enforcement in Moscow, Idaho, they immediately checked with ERs, things like that, for people that might have sustained an injury in the next day or two after that, or even someone had suggested surveillance footage from pharmacies of people buying like stuff to bandage a wound or something like that, which sounds like it might be difficult to do, but in a town the size of Moscow, Idaho, granted if they did it there, wouldn't be as difficult probably as you think. Hey, if it was in Delphi, you would just go to CVS and you would just ask the pharmacist what should I get for this wound, and then Richard Allen would tell you, oh, you need to go to aisle 4 and just that's the wound coverings.
Here's my personal recommendation. This works well.
Yeah. Yeah. Callie says you don't have to register a knife, and that is why some murders in the home are becoming more and more common. Nothing to link you to the crime unless you have exactly, Callie. Yeah. Oh, and Ring cameras, which I should go. Oh, I know. I mean, I know even when I was on analysis of a crime with like CD's channel last week, and we were talking to the neighbor Jeremy Reagan. I mean, he even talked about how there were, a lot of people had after the crime, neighbors all over the place were putting up Ring cameras. So I actually was kind of surprised that some of that there weren't more there to begin with, or even motion lights. But hindsight is 20/20. Hey, Ray Jones.
I'll give you a bonus one while you're reading questions. This is a skeleton knife.
You have 6 knives on you.
I probably have 10. This one I keep on me all the time because it's nice, it's lightweight, and it's another one that it's a Gerber. It's a good knife, but they're not that expensive. And I like a smaller knife. I was really upset. They made this in a serrated blade, and I used it all the time at my business. And it actually fractured in half. So I fixed it, and I made a new tip on it. So it wound up being like an inch shorter, and I love that knife, and I lost it. So it took me a year to find the same size, but I couldn't find a serrated. So this was the replacement, the non-serrated version of it. But yeah, I can't find the serrated anywhere. At least new. They're used on eBay, but not new ones.
Are there any other night? I mean, now I feel like, do we need to do an independent stream one night where you just like give us all, like, you tell us all about knives? Because I'm just sitting here watching, and we'll have to have you turn your green screen off that night. But
yeah, I keep
that kind of stuff all the time.
Blade Gerber in my car all the time with a rubber composite handle, and it is like a definite no slip type of knife. I've gotten it greasy, I've gotten it dirty, and it really holds the hand well. And it does have a little bit of a bar in the front that blocks your finger if you were holding it normal straight out. But yeah.
Well, there you go. We have a product review for anyone looking to go and do anything horrific. Magic says it's called a hilt on the fixed blade. It stops your hand from sliding off the handle when using the knife. Yeah, absolutely. Only reason I know that is because of what I'm owning a hair salon and doing hair for 20 years. Any blade is going to be the same. So even scissors, the back of a blade is called the hilt. The front of it's called the tip. And same with a straight razor. And that's the thing I probably cut myself on the most is when I'm doing the back of the neck or something, or I'm cutting with a straight razor, and I'll cut myself, and it's always the hilt.
Yeah, because that's where it comes to that edge, and it curves. That's the hardest part of the straight razor to not cut yourself on until you get really accustomed.
I'm never cutting myself, but only myself.
I will give everyone a tip, though. Yeah, well, on a person, it's not easy to cut them with that part, but if you're the one using it, that's the most common one on a straight razor to cut your finger with is where that blade curves down where a hilt should be. There is no hilt on it, but yeah, it should have one, but then it would get in the way of using it the way it's supposed to be used. But everyone wants a tip. If you're buying really nice kitchen knives, make sure they've got a full tang. T-A-N-G. Tang, that's the part of the blade that runs through the handle.
Okay. Which is why it won't break off, right?
Couple of reasons. The best thing is if you're using what they call a chopper, something for chopping or for butchering stuff up, is
right. I think we've all had a knife that's done that.
Yeah, the constant banging on the cutting board. The weakest part is where the handle meets, and the handles will break. If it has a full hilt, then the handle is actually just for grip. The rest of it's all metal. It's one piece.
Right. Ray Jones said, K-bar handles are made of leather. Yeah, like I said, so sweat and blood actually become sticky on the hands. Yeah, and that's the exact reason is to cut down on the, like kind of that oily nature, or the viscous nature of blood, like Lewis had said earlier. So you're exactly right?
If you're not experienced with it, it actually is not going to help with any kind of viscous fluid on your hand. It might help, but if you're not, if you're not experienced in how to properly hold that weapon when using it, it'll actually allow the blood to build up between your hand and the actual handle, and it creates that film. It's just like oil in your engine. That's the lubricant that keeps the two parts from not getting hard wearing. Same thing on your hand. If you don't know how to hold the knife properly, what you've done is lubricated the handle so that your hand can slip off. Even if the leather gets kind of sticky on the handle, think of molasses. If you poured molasses on your knife handle, it's still going to make it move. And then once your finger jumps over the hilt, if there is a hilt, you're going to cut your hand on the blade. That's why I understand. I do understand a lot of people that do these knife assaults, they do get caught because they're not using planning and they're not using a weapon that they found it. They're grabbing a kitchen knife and doing it with that.
Right. You're Michael Myers killer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He should have pulled his fingers many times over.
Right. Callie says, plus the K-bar has a small piece. If you see a tail, that's my cat. Callie says, plus the K-bar has a small piece that helps keep your hand from slipping. I sleep with one. So no one go mess with Callie.
She's out of herself.
I know, right? And knowing Callie, I'm extra afraid. Magic says I sleep with a Glock 19. Oh, Ray. Magic thinks I did everything. Kyle Davis says, Lewis says F around and find out 1 of 5 ways. 6 ways, apparently, Kyle Davis, and we've maybe 10.
Yeah. Or more.
Yeah. Blood Groove is called a Fuller. Bounty Hunter 13. My favorite number, Bounty Hunter.
If anyone wants to use
I didn't know that term.
A bladed weapon for protection, use a hatchet.
Why?
A hatchet is like using a hammer. It's a lot more comfortable for somebody to use a hammer because everyone's used a hammer at one point or another in their life. So a hatchet is a safer weapon to use. And then you can actually take a cord and wrap it around the hatchet handle in your hand because now you're not stabbing. You're hitting like you would with a hammer. So if you had to defend yourself in the house and it came down to something like that, a hatchet is a much better weapon to use. There's no punching and there's no slipping. It's just whacking like a hammer.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that the blood groove is called a Fuller. I'd never heard that term before, so it's nice to know. Ben says you need to do some unboxing videos, Louis.
I guess it's good, but I don't know.
Ray Jones says a CRKT and Baker are outstanding knives. Case as well. Lewis, do you watch Forged in Fire? True Crime Housewife is asking.
Yes.
I don't know what that is, so.
It's like a competition to make knives.
Oh, okay.
Teams, they go out there and or a cutting type of weapon or something similar.
My whole career. I can tell you all about Japanese steel and blades, but I don't know as much about knives. Granted, the science of them is the same, but Lewis, have you seen the mossy oak knives that have interchangeable blades? I have a few and love them, Kyle Davis says.
Yes, I have. I'm a knife snob with my own likes. I like Smith & Wesson, older Smith & Wesson knives. I like the Milwaukee Construction Series knives, the fast.
That's the flooring one you have?
That one, and then there's the straight one too. I've got actually more, but here's the straight one.
Okay.
And I like them, like I said, because it's a softer metal blade, so it holds up in work. So after retiring from the car business, I actually do a classic car and parts business. So I take apart lots of vehicles, And in the process of taking them apart, I find a knife works a lot easier than other tools. So when it comes to doing even like connectors for electrical wiring, that's why I keep that small Gerber knife, because the tip of this is perfect for popping little terminals. So the reason I've got so many knives is they all have a dedicated job. You know, the flooring knife, I actually use that for cutting open wire or cutting open aluminum and stuff and things like that. And then the straight blade one, because you actually use it to pry things and it won't snap and break. And yeah. So there's every knife that I showed you actually has a dedicated use, and that's why it stays in the little tool bucket I've got here that I take with me everywhere.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to come back to the knives at some, your knowledge on knives. How many knives do you think you own total? If we were to set any red flags off for anyone.
Over 30.
Over 30.
Yeah. That I mean, I'm sure there's probably another 20 or 30 loose junk knives in my tool drawers at my building and stuff like that. But I've got at least 25 to 30 knives that are good knives that I've bought for different things that are specific.
Right.
I've got a really nice set of 3 knives for the kitchen that are real high dollar knives, and that's part of the 30 knives I've got or so.
Are they Jinsu knives? I see those commercials. Copper Horse put a link to something on Amazon and said, "There you go, Lewis." Copper Horse has good taste, so yeah. Paraframe black serrated is in the or Gerber, so you can look at that, Lewis, in the chat. And
that's what that one I showed you is. It's the Gerber Paraframe. The problem is, ask him what size that one is, because that's the problem, is the length. I'm specifically looking for the really short one, and that's because I use it for electrical work and stuff, and that's why it's a hard one to find.
Yeah.
This one here is bigger than the one that I want. I settled on this because the small one that they sell, that I think it's like 2.5 inch, I can't find them anymore. So this I think is a 3.5 inch.
Right. Tammy 77 says Forged and Fire is a good show. Thank you. Copper Horse, I've not been on Twitter lately, so I apologize if I missed anything that you've tagged me in, but you are a beast on Twitter, so that's awesome. Always from morning to night, always doing work for victims and getting awareness out there for different people that are victims of crime. So Copper Horse is the real deal. Miss In says, thoughts on James Curtis Leonard. Check out Grizzly True Crime. Yeah, I like Grizzly. Is James Curtis Leonard, I know this was a few minutes ago that you posted this at Miss M, but is that who was arrested 2 days ago in Moscow, Idaho? The ex-convict that was arrested on like an assault and domestic battery charge, maybe? That the coroner was also like the attorney for, which was odd, but it could be small town USA. If that's who you're talking about, I do believe that I heard the police have said adamantly that it's not related. And I believe the homicide that they were convicted of was with a gun, but I know that they threatened their spouse or domestic partner with a bladed weapon. So, and I'll look into that more, but I do think the police came out and said they don't think it was related. But it was like a mile away. That is interesting. Tammy says, we don't know yet if they were cut or stabbed right. We just know there were no guns, assumed they were shot. Yeah. Well, I mean, the coroner used the word stabbing. And I actually watched one interview where she even the person even said something about like sliced or stabbed, and she repeated the word stabbed. So I think, I've heard rumors about, especially Kaylee's injuries being extremely more brutal and some of what that entails, but there may have been a combination with a few of the victims or one of the victims, but I think for the most part, they said they were stabbed in their torso and neck and chest area. Not to get too graphic. Yes, Callie, I do think the majority of the wounds were post-mortem as well I just wonder with all the wounds they received if it was possible with the type of I just wonder with all of the wounds they received if it was possible with that type of knife. Well, my understanding, if we're correct in it being like a K-bar style knife, from things I've read and looked at about the K-bar, that it came into popularity during World War I believe, and it was specifically issued for military. I believe it was Marines at first, and then the Navy started using them as well. And everything I've looked into with that style of knife it was designed for one purpose. And that one purpose is pretty much exactly the outcome that these 4 victims succumbed to. Am I incorrect in that, Lewis, or do you know anything different about a K-bar style knife? Or
no, I mean that's a combat
tool.
style type knife. I mean, it's hard to say what their mythology was going into this. I would think that it was probably having a weapon that was going to be the most damaging with the least amount of issues to them. So I would expect something along those lines. It wouldn't be the direction I would go in, but that would be a good possibility. I think I'd want something with fingers, actual finger support for grip, as opposed to just grip. Something where you can't slip at all, but that's, I use knives all the time, so I know what works and what doesn't work. And
right.
I even with the hilt on it and the better hand, band, there's a lot of hand fatigue. I don't think people realize that. And this person was probably in very good shape. It takes a lot of hand strength to carry out what I think they did here.
Right, and another injury that you can easily sustain when I'm assuming the chaoticness of the act of this, happening is, again, I don't like to put myself in that mindset, but I would assume you're using your dominant hand to hold the bladed weapon, and then I would assume then with your other hand, you're attempting to probably subdue or hold down the victim, so even just injuring yourself in the cutting your weaker hand can easily happen as well in that type of act. Copperhorse says, Lewis, that Gerber serrated is a 4.5 inch.
Yes, that's the one that I keep finding. I can't find it. I think it's either 2.5 or a 3-inch serrated one. It fits right in your change pocket on your jeans, and it's so easy to use. And like I said, the one I had for years, the tip broke, so I actually wound up making a different a Tonto type tip on it, and so it wound up being a bit shorter. It had to be like maybe a 1-inch blade, but it worked so well for everything.
Are you trying to shank people? Are you trying to shank people? A 1-inch blade?
I said mainly that was used for electrical connections and things like that. So it was it fit the use. Actually, after it broke and I fixed it, it fit the use better. I made it work better for what I needed to work with. But
Bounty Hunter says, does anyone know what kind of car Jack S has? I do not know what kind of car Jack S has. I have it somewhere. I cannot. I've got to find it again. I could talk for hours about that person in particular, just because there's so many red flags that fly in front of my face when it comes to that guy. But one that I thought about even today was, it's easy to assume how someone with anger issues, and if you know anything about that person, even though they've been cleared by the by law enforcement, I'd be interested to know their alibi, and how the police are so adamant that they know, that they were able to clear them so quickly. But in addition to feeling possibly rejected by one of those female victims, anyone that knows anything about Jack S's family dynamic knows that his parents are both, they sound like incredible people. They're doctors. They do a lot of work with missionaries in Africa. I believe his younger brother is adopted from Africa. One or two of his older brothers are doctors as well. One of his older brothers is a star athlete, football player, I believe. And I started thinking about today about, Ethan also being a victim and, growing up where, I mean, if you looked at the social media of the parents' pages, and I'm not saying everyone go to this guy's parents' pages to look at their social media, but there are countless pictures and praise of the kids. Not so much about Jack.
Really? That's
and
right.
so I'm thinking, I'm like, here, if you grow up and you've got anger issues, you've got all of these things that already like kind of lead in this direction. And then, you also have a brother who's like, the star football player and all this. Oh, and then, one of the four victims in this was, a star athlete in high school. I don't think that he was the prime target at all, but I wouldn't, not be surprised at all, speculatively, if someone like Jack S were to be the culprit, what kind of aggression that probably would bring about in someone. But I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to jump down any rabbit holes, but that was something I thought about today. Hey, JDR. Yeah, this is Lewis. Lewis joins us quite a bit, a couple times a week, and kind of has a little bit of insight into everything. And then Sunny and Lewis have a channel called. Lewis, do you want to drop the link?
I won't be able to do it in chat. I can't with
okay.
But yeah, it's Ask Us.
What's it
called?
Facebook
page too.
It's called.
I don't know if I can. I'll send you the link, and then you can send. You want the Facebook link or did you want the YouTube link?
I can put them both in. That's fine. But the channel, I think I was interrupting you when you were reading the name of the channel. What is it called?
Oh, Just Ask Us.
Okay.
Is the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. And then after that says Lewis and Sunny. But I will send you the link to the Facebook.
Yeah.
If this wants to work.
And it's a little bit about everything other than murder. I know when I was their first guest was that this week or last week?
Tuesday.
Tuesday night, yeah. And Sunny just said, she's like, you just can't talk about murder. And I was like, what am I supposed to talk about?
I think what she meant is you can't talk about Delphi.
I know.
I think everything else should be open.
I know. Ray Jones says Slash would be a good nickname for Lewis. Absolutely. And then I'll drop the Facebook and the YouTube in chat really quick.
Yeah, I'll pull the YouTube up now while you're doing the Facebook.
And then, Lewis, while you okay, you're doing that.
Yeah, I can. What were you asking?
I was just gonna. So you guys are doing a show on Tuesday on that channel, correct?
Yeah, Tuesday will be the second show. So if anyone wants to send any questions in beforehand, what we're going to do is take questions off the Facebook page and try to put together some show for Tuesday, and then also in live chat we'll take questions that way also. But that way people that can't tune into the live can actually send a question in and then listen to the live later after it's been played or broadcast. So
right,
gives people a couple of different options.
And I'm sure if you've got Sunny's email, I'm sure she could probably figure it out if she'd know what you're asking if you send it to the other one. Diamond Eyes, I think that you might be referring to Sunny because Sunny's the one that I mean, unless I wasn't listening, I don't believe Lewis gave an eyeliner tip.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that. What was your eyeliner tip?
It was old and outdated, but it was heat. So people
what do you mean?
put pencils to heat the tip up first?
Oh, yeah, because it would look right. That makes sense. And then run in your eye.
Only if you overheat it, I would assume, right?
That's right, because I know Sunny was talking about eyeliners on the show on Tuesday, and so I somehow missed your eyeliner tip, but that's the one that stood out to Diamond Eyes. So of the three of us that were on that show that night, I did not think you'd be the person that got the eyeliner compliment.
I think it just dates us, right? It dates what generation I'm from.
Yeah, just a blow dryer on it for a few seconds. Yeah, that can do anything with a lot of things. Glue, I mean, lash glue or anything.
To go off topic too, it's amazing how things don't work the same. You say it works with other things, but yeah, like with cars, example.
Mm-hmm.
You used to be able to fix scratches in cars by buffing them out with heat. All the new clear
when they were
coats,
metal.
yeah, the new clear coats are now all, you can't reheat them and spray new clear over them. They don't melt into each other anymore. Once it dries, it's a chemical process you can't undo. So it makes things harder to fix, but it makes them harder so they don't scratch as easy.
Copper Horse says, here you go, Lewis. The miniature version of the Gerber has a 2.25 inch partially serrated edge blade and weighs just a hair over an ounce.
Yes, that's the one.
Yes. But I don't see a link there, Copper Horse.
It's still out there. It's just every time I've tried to order one, it's never in stock. So I gave up, you know.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is ask YouTube and we'll figure it out. Bounty Hunter says, I completely agree with that. He's complete. Yeah, Jack S is very suspicious. And I know that if law enforcement has ruled him out, I'm not saying anything that, you know, I hope that means they know, you know, concretely what his alibi would be. You know, and I would assume that would have to be something like him being on video somewhere at a completely different time. And not something like someone saying he was with me, or even just cell phone. Not even just GPS from his cell phone. I hope that's not to them enough to clear him, but
or it could be a tactical reason by the police to take people off of him if they're onto him and they don't want him to know. That could just be a tactical way of taking, you know, the heat off of him.
Well, then they should have got DNA before they let him go to Africa.
Yeah. Well, knowing that he's out of the country, that could be a smart way of making him not think it's unsafe to come back.
Right.
You know.
Right. Again, that is, we don't have, you know, I don't have proof that he's in Africa. I'm just, you know, it's speculative. Oh, and Copper Horse did put a REI link there.
Oh, cool.
And it's in stock and on sale for $11.19.
Good deal.
So, can you get the link or can you get the link from the chat, or do you need me to send it to you?
If you could send it to me, that would be better.
Yeah, I will.
To that phone, yeah.
Thank you, Copper Horse.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you looking that up and finding it.
So yeah, I mean, I think if for the most part, I think we're a little over 2 hours, and I believe, you know, it's actually longer than I thought we would even go. But hey, Mrs. Depp. Mrs. Depp says eyelash curler, preheat it with a blow dryer. Yeah. And Mrs. Depp, I probably have a messenger message from you or two that I need to check. And I will do that after we get off the live tonight. I apologize. It's been kind of a crazy week. Toto keeps playing. Yeah.
No, I just want to thank Copper Horse for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Copper Horse is awesome.
Yes.
Although I think it just took me to their. Try to click it again. It just took me to their regular, like their main page.
What site was it? What page?
It's REI.
Oh, REI. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever checked REI out for that. So.
It's trying to get me to download their app now. So yeah, does anyone have any questions or anything before we head out for the evening? I know, like, for anyone that came in late, Sunny is a little under the weather. That's the only reason she's not here tonight. But she should be back on Sunday evening, if not sooner. You never know. But I know that I think that I'm going to be on a stream tomorrow night. If anyone's up late tomorrow night, with Mel from Cold Truth and Chaotic Beauty. I believe on Chaotic Beauty's channel. So, and if anyone's around late tomorrow night, I think probably, I'd say, I don't know, I don't have the definite time yet, but I'd say probably around 11 or 12. Come check us out on Chaotic Beauty's channel. But other than that, if no one has any questions, Lewis, do you have any last thoughts or anything?
No, I'm glad you brought me up to speed. I think reading that press release brought me up to speed more. than I was before, just with a little bit. And then the questions you answered were a lot more beneficial. So I think I need to do a little diving into it and follow up a little closer. It seems like it's worth following.
Yeah, it'll pull you in, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's just funny that I told you about that other thing that I'd seen earlier today, and that's because she went to trial. But that's just, it's very odd that you had a similar instance in Indiana, and the reasoning behind it had nothing to do with the people, had nothing to do with the house that she went to, and it's just weird how things like that happen.
Right. That's what made me think of Ted Bundy. I think someone in chat had mentioned Ramirez as well. But yeah, I think he would like at the last minute decide to spare certain people as well, which is very random. But I know it's funny. I mean, it's hard not to have Delphi, like when you follow true crime, it's hard not to have Delphi in your DNA a little bit, as far as it's always in my mind. And so like I said, like when one of the, I think it was Kaylee's mother in Idaho, she said, they wake up every day and she thinks today is the day. And I'm like, my mind went straight to Becky Patty. And like, so it's easy to start to kind of connect certain aspects about, it's even the ISP, for goodness sakes, Idaho, Indiana. So
exactly.
It's, I have not seen quite as much meth though. There's definitely, a lot of drugs and stuff in the area, but I've not dived into nearly as many people with meth convictions. But I think that might be just the cases that we've looked into. Andrea Garner, yeah, everyone's saying Sunny feel better. I don't think Sunny's even watching. She's hopefully getting some rest.
Normally when she's not feeling well, she still gets on, and you guys never even know it. But right. She did not sound well today at all. Her voice was almost gone, and I think you could hear the struggle in her voice. The fact that she wasn't coming on bothered her more than how badly she felt.
Yeah, and Lisa, I will make sure I screenshot that and send it to her immediately. But yeah, so I think, like I said, I think, we will say goodnight now. And then we hope, thank you. If everyone on their way out could at least give the thumbs up, so Sunny doesn't think that I did damage the channel while she wasn't around. I would appreciate it. And Lewis, thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, no problem at all. I appreciate her calling me when you guys were down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I did send you the 4 pages I screenshotted because the site was really bad with the lady that made that.
Thank you. I'll look into that later.
Yeah, I said it was from 2 years ago, but I think she just she admitted to guilt in court today or this week. I didn't look at the date, but it ties in with this case really well if you look at it.
Yeah, I will take a look.
Interesting little read.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know I was just reading something else about that case, and I know I said we're leaving, but I was just reading something about what's his name, the one that would kill the gay men and bury him in his backyard. He would have mannequins in his indoor pool.
He started those Save-A-Lot stores, I believe.
Yeah,
was how he made his money. But yeah, he'd send his family on vacation every year, and while they were gone,
to French Lick. Yeah, that's a fascinating case that I'd watched a documentary about that years ago, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. So then to see the kind of renewed interest in that, with now these 12 families coming forward and requesting that DNA be compared to their missing son from that went missing at that time. That's hopefully a good start, because I think for anyone that is not familiar, as of now, I think there were a little over 24
25 bodies, at least, is what I remember.
Right. And only 8 of them, I think, have been identified.
Yeah, that was in 1994, wasn't it?
I knew it was 90s because, it was very still stigmatized as far as, that's why even a lot of some of these families didn't come forward at the time, because there was, definitely a different stigma on the LGBTQI, whatever, community. I don't mean whatever, but I just never know how many letters they add to it. Baumeister. But I think only 8 of the remains that they found have actually to this date been identified. So that's a lot of sons that have families that never got to say goodbye to them. Oh, Cold Truth is here, and she was talking about that case earlier today as well. Cold Truth, I'm not stealing any of your information, I promise. It reminded me about the renewed interest in that case.
When you bring that stuff up, it's funny, like with Dahmer and stuff, any of those earlier crimes that link to an alternate lifestyle seem to not really get the press or the interest by police. Just, it's different how that stuff is. Give me one moment.
Oh, you're fine. Well, Luce, I think, I think the LGBTQ community is, more represented than they ever have been in the past, at least, in the United States. To me, I'm grateful for that. But this was definitely, if you put yourself back in the mid '90s, it was definitely a time when the perception of I wouldn't use the word alternative lifestyles, but the perception of people that weren't the exact same, definitely was generalized definitely more and demonized a little bit more. But I won't go onto a soapbox, but that, like I know Cold Truth had mentioned earlier today when she was doing her stream, and I know no one's really worked harder for justice for Ray Hanisch, who is another gay male that Garrett Kurtz killed and confessed to killing in 2019, but to date has never ever had a charge brought on his murder. And that's, to me, a huge injustice in Indiana or anywhere. But, that's why I try to bring it up every chance I get, just because there's no reason that Ray Hanisch shouldn't and his family shouldn't have justice. And just like all of the family members of the victims of the guy, my goodness, his name just escaped me again. Having a blonde moment. Baumeister, all of those families need justice as well. And then, Cold Truth, you had mentioned something on your stream earlier today that I didn't even know about. I think it was there was a killer targeting gay men also in Indiana at one point on I-65, and it's not the I-65 killer, it's another one, or I-70. So I'm definitely am going to look into that as well. So, for anyone that doesn't know who Garrett Kurtz is, he killed Nicole Bowen and is in jail or in prison for murdering Nicole Bowen. But he also has confessed to the murder of Ray Hanisch. But Ray's not gotten justice, he deserves.
What bothers me about Ray's death is the death had nothing to do with lifestyle choices, but was made to look like it was. And that's something that bothered me. Because of that, it seemed like they just lost interest. And I don't think that was right.
And that was not in 1994. That was in 2019. So that, to me, is even more unexcusable.
Exactly. That's it shows how much of a blind eye can affect how things are handled. When you look back, you've got a convicted killer that admitted to doing it, and still nothing is done. That bothers me more than you can imagine.
Absolutely. And and I don't like to ever attack law enforcement or a DA's office or anything like that. But without without a light being shined on some of the stuff in places where these injustices happen, they just continue to happen. So if you're a DA or something in I believe that was that White County, Indiana,
I believe
a small county, Indiana. You don't assume that people are going to be talking about you on YouTube because you decide to use a prejudice in the way you make a presumption on a death investigation, and you don't even take evidence to the point where you can't then never even hope to get a conviction without a confession because they didn't do an investigation. They didn't take evidence. They didn't even realize, they didn't notice his TV was missing or his car was missing. They thought it was a sex act gone wrong.
Laying on the table. There was a cell phone that they left. How do you not collect and bag evidence?
Yeah. It's important to hold our elected officials and the people that represent us to the standard that that we deserve them to be at.
The most negative message that sends to the community is, if you make it seem like this type of a crime, we won't look into it, so you're safe. So just like that one, it just fit, but I believe it was fully staged to look that way. So that tells the criminals, if you stage it in this particular manner, we're not going to even look at you when you confess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it bothers me. I get really upset about that.
Yeah. And like I said, I know Mel has done more than anyone that I personally know to help bring justice for Ray. So I commend, Mel knows I commend her for everything, but I definitely commend her for what she's done to help Dottie and Cher and the rest of Ray's family. So anyway, I know it's 10 minutes ago we said we were leaving, so let's again say goodnight and wrap up. I've got to get up really early in the morning. It's 12 o'clock here.
You just had to mention Ray.
Yeah, but for anyone that wants to check out, I think I'm doing a stream, like I said, tomorrow night with Cold Truth, and I think hopefully Cold Truth and Amy from Chaotic Beauty. So check us out, and then we will see you guys Sunday night, and I will let Sunny know that everyone missed her. Hey, Michelle O, I'm sorry. You can watch on replay. I think we had a lot of good content this evening, so thank you very much for everyone that's been in here, and we will see you all later.
Sounds good. Everyone have a nice night.
Thank you, Liz.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.